Hello, everyone. Welcome to a live episode of Proceed with Passion. I am your host, Terry Schilling. And what I like to do is bring on fellow creative and successful human beings and talk about some of the bumps in the road, lessons learned, and big wins that help them do work that they're passionate about. And today's guest is Brenna McGowan, straight out of California, email marketing copywriter and Instagram content creator strategist. You wear a lot of hats, Brenna. I'm so happy that we discuss and talk more on this today.
I'm so excited to be here and I'm honored. So thank you very much.
Yes, we're live in the Facebook Copy Co-op group. If you guys are watching live, you can please feel free to comment if something strikes your interest. Comment and ask some questions as we go deeper into the interview. If you're watching the replay, hello to you as well. This is going to be a fun conversation with Brenna. And Brenna, you are a member of the Facebook group, the Copy Co-op, and a big contributor. And so just want to start by saying thank you for all the help that you do and just like giving helpful advice to a lot of the other freelance writers and entrepreneurs here.
Thank you. I know a lot of my success has been just people giving me these little tips, someone who's a little bit ahead of me, helping me out along the way. So I try and pay it forward as much as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start that then. How do you feel the important community has been really since obviously quarantine? It just feels like it's more important now to engage in these different groups and find that community of like-minded people, right?
Yeah, and I think since we're at home, I think it's more people are on there. So, we're not going out, we're not seeing friends as much. So I'm super thankful for my online community. It's definitely helped me get me through this time.
Yeah, totally. It's just like having access to so many people too just seems so much easier with everything that's going on. Just people aren't traveling and aren't going to work, commuting all the time. They're kind of in front of one screen, one way or the other most of the day.
Totally. I'm hearing a little, I want to make sure it's not my internet or it just so we don't ruin the live. Am I staticky on your side or no?
No, yeah, you sound good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't hear any echoes on my end or anything. But yeah, you seem fine. Does it sound weird on your end?
Yeah, just there's a little bit of a delay. So I didn't know if I need to move closer to my Wi-Fi. Just wanted to make sure it sounded okay to everyone else.
There might be a slight delay, but I think we're good. If anybody is watching, we got a couple of people. If you want to give a thumbs up or anything, but I think we're good. But okay, Brenna, great. I want to talk about, you started your business in 2018 by your own business as a social media manager. But I wanted to go back a little bit. What was life like, after college for you, for your career? What did you want to do? And then what were some of the other, career stops along the way?
Gosh, I've had so many pivots. Someone asked me for an interview recently, like, where was your start? And I was like, and I actually wrote an Instagram post because I think back, I'm like, there's so many starts along the way, right? Especially I'm 42. So there's lots of little twists and turns, but I went to college. I met my husband young. We got married when I was 20. I worked for a large bank. I was an assistant manager, customer service manager. My first real job was in banking, and I did that through college. So, and then I decided I wanted to have babies and stay home. So when I was 5, I had my son, and hard to believe he's a senior in high school this year.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. So I'm like, wait, didn't I just graduate high school? And I stayed home, and my husband, we've been self-employed all along. That we had some publishing business. So basically, though, during that time, I really focused on my children, and I'm super thankful I had the opportunity to do that. And when they all were in school, I have 3. My daughter went to preschool. I went back to work part-time, working from home, just doing social media posts for people. I was doing some email marketing. Eventually, I went and kind of transitioned, and I worked. I was doing some of that on the side, and I've always worn many hats. I was also working, kind of doing some administrative work for a website development company, which has been such a gift to me that I was able to do that because I really learned about user experience. And so it kind of coupled all of this experience that I had. And then in the end of 2017 or so, a couple of things happened. The major thing is the company I was working for that I was getting a decent amount of my income from, was slow, so they pulled back. And at the same time, one of my best friends, who's an esthetician, was starting a business, and I think this is so appropriate, but I wanted fake eyelashes and didn't have the budget to pay for them. So I was like, hey, why don't I do your social media? And, and you can do my eyelashes. So from there, what ended up happening, I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. What ended up happening is so many people liked it and liked what I was doing that I thought, why not make this a business? The ironic thing was I was not on social media at all for myself. So I didn't do social media at all. So I truly didn't realize that like there was people called social media managers. And I ended up throwing myself into my own business at the beginning of 2018, doing social media. I was doing social media, blogging, email marketing, and
doing everything.
I did everything, right? And I made like 2 cents an hour. Like I look at how much I made, And the funniest part, I remember I was blogging for people for $50, like doing SEO and crazy. And they said I was too expensive. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? So that's a long way of saying, at the beginning of 2019, I decided to pivot to email marketing. I really looked at my business and thought, what the heck am I doing? I hate what I'm doing right now. I'm killing myself, making less money. And at that point, I looked at my business, looked at what do I truly like doing. And at that point, I focused completely down on email marketing, and it was the best decision I've ever made by far. So
yeah. Obviously, email, it's becoming more of just in general, just like a hot topic right now because of some of like the potential bans with TikTok and how you don't really own land on all these social media platforms, and the email, is really yours, that you can control and put out content that's original to you, again, and not owned by somebody else. So definitely see the importance there. Brenna, I'm curious though, when you were scrambling, doing all those side projects, what would you say was like the hourly rate for what you were getting paid then? Like $10 an hour compared to everything that you were doing?
I'm sure it was like $5 an hour, because when I think back, writing a blog and then putting it onto someone's WordPress, doing keyword research. And then because I was like so new, I thought I had to have green lights on Yoast. And so like I'd like write everything up and then I'd go back and do Yoast. And so it was, and not to mention the back and forth with the client. So I'm sure it took me. However, I'm super thankful for that experience because even though I consult with so many people, when it comes to email marketing, yes, I'm looking at their email and I'm writing for them, but I have a really, high level view of, the entire funnel, what you have to do online, so all of this kind of wrapped up into a great experience, so at least I didn't pay, I guess you could say I paid, but, I made a little money while I was learning, but I definitely was not making a big dollar amount. Like when I think about what I charge now and then, I'm like, wow.
No, I know. It's so interesting because when you start stuff like that, you kind of go with the norm and what So it's like, well, roughly, $13, $15 is minimum wage most places. So it's just like, okay, maybe just charge like $20 an hour, maybe move up then down the road. Then you start working, but like the rush is just kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid to do this. And then you start seeing other people like, oh my God, I am so cheap. What am I doing here? You just learn.
I think too, as new entrepreneurs, I know for me, and which is the crazy part is like, I've had businesses with my husband. So, but I'm like, okay, if I can make $30 an hour, I'm getting a raise maybe or something, or 40.
Right.
But what we don't take into account is the bookkeeping, the marketing, like all those things,
totally.
Making sure we have enough money for health insurance. I listened to a podcast a little while in and I was like, oh, wow. Like that $30 an hour is really like $6 an hour when I start looking at my taxes, how much time I'm actually spending on the client. So really try, and it takes time. It's not, pricing, I think is probably one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. You just really have to start going to work and figuring out what's best for you and just thinking how much time goes into everything. But you're right, because like I see some people post, it's like, oh my gosh, I made $60,000 last month, but it's like, but not all of that's mine because I pay people on my staff and I have this and that. So it's easy to get caught up in certain of the numbers, but there is so much of the back work that, people don't see that you got to pay for too at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like writing $100 blog is just like, okay, like you got to do tons of research, like you said, keyword research, but also just the research to write an engaging and effective blog. So you gotta add that into the price as well.
Yeah. And I decided I hated blog writing too. Like if someone came to me and wanted me to write a blog right now, I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
A lot of money, because
yeah.
I definitely love the conversion copywriting a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's you switch to the email copywriting, and then also you do a lot of stuff with Instagram content. So I want to get into that too. When did you really know what copywriting was at that time, Brenna? And then kind of what were some of the things that really got you into it and become a more effective copywriter?
At the time, I think once I got into like the social media world and I was doing social media management, and I was like, I listened to every podcast, read every book. I really started like diving into all the different aspects. And I think that's why I knew I had to niche, because I knew there's so much that goes into all of this. I think at the turning point was I signed up for Laura Belgray's email list. I'm like Laura Belgray's super fan. And when I read her first email, and I remember because I sent her an email and then she replied to me and I was like, woo. I signed up for her email list and I got her initial email and I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I have always had like these quirky stories in my head, and the fact that she made money off of these stories. So I think it was a progression of learning what copywriting was. And then I think once I decided to go into email copy specifically, I then started looking more into copywriting. And I had signed up my email mentor, Chris Orzechowski. He came out with what he called Email Copy Academy. So I had signed up for that. Okay. And that was like the turning point of like, this is what I'm doing. And I think it gave me the confidence to be, yes, like you can make a money and be an email copywriter. So although ironically now I'm writing all kinds of copy, I'm doing tons of websites. So it goes back to like, I think people are afraid to niche down to things, but it doesn't mean necessarily stuck in that box. It just helps you get known for something. So people remember who you are.
Yeah, no. And what I love about what you do is you really just find a great way and balance of just adding person in and getting into the sale. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with when it comes to copy is how am I want to write more conversational copy, add more personality that connects with your audience. Because I really don't know if my copy is right now. So, what are some of your favorite exercises maybe that you do and that you teach, maybe other clients or students of just how to write with more personality in their emails?
Well, everything that I teach, which is what I love about the way I teach writing in general, is that you can write about anything, right? I use all personal stories for the most part. I mean, I use client stories too when it's appropriate, but all you have to do is figure out an angle to come at the story. So, So for example, I call it my forward backward method. I'm fine tuning this method, but I'll explain to you what it was. I do it one of two ways. So the first way that I do it is I have a story, and then I think how I'm going to apply it to my sales for the day. So a quick example is my Instagram post today. I had this conversation with my husband. I'm a little depressed in California here because we're like still under lockdown and my kids are home all the time. And so I sent my husband a random text and said, I love Christmas. I'm like, we're putting our Christmas lights up like September 1st this year. And I was ready for him to be like, oh geez, like here we go. Dramatic. And he replied, okay. And I was like, that was easy. Like I didn't have to finagle or anything. And so this morning I thought, oh, that's a great, now I'm a membership called the Content Bar. So we help people produce content easily and effectively for Instagram and email. And so what I did was I thought, oh, I'm going to use this as a post. So I took that core thought, that feature. Marisa, one of my mentors, said it the other day, the main emotion I had, which was easy, right? Like that was like the whole premise of our conversation. And I used that for my Instagram post today. And I said, you want to know what else is easy? When you don't have to worry about your content creation when you sign up for the Content Bar. So that would be what I call my forward, where I have story and I'm figuring out the main feature, emotion, characteristics so I could apply it to what I want to sell. My backwards, so the way I go at this backwards is I know what I need to sell. or I know the objection, the pain point, the transformation, the myth that I'm trying to bust. So I go at it from that conversion standpoint of, what do I want the customer to believe? Okay, I need them to believe that, we'll use the same example. In this case, I want them to think that signing up for the content bar is going to make their life way easier. So here, I knew that my main emotion is easy. So then I would think of a time or a story in my life where something was easy and apply it that way. So there's two ways to kind of go about it, depending on how your brain works and what you're up to. Like a lot of times I'll have stories that stick out to me. So I'm like, oh, this is such a good story. I got to figure out a way to tell my audience this because I know they're really going to love it. Or there's other times, especially during a launch or a sales period, where I think, okay, and especially if I'm working with a client, I think, okay, these are the things that we have to make sure we hit. How can we find stories to apply it the other way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I love that. Well, I just love how you really focus on what's the emotion here. It's like, okay, it's something that's easy. And I think that's really interesting. Like if a cool story comes up and be like, okay, this made me laugh. How can I use this to promote this product? And like, what's the emotion here? I really like that approach because I think sometimes we're just like, all right, I know what I want to sell. So let me just see if there's a story or let me just talk about pain points. But I think adding that personal story and just even like the visualization of putting up Christmas lights early can relate to a lot of people. So I love that approach.
Yeah. And I'd argue that most of your emails or Instagram content, whatever it is, you have to have story. Like if you don't start intertwining story into what you're doing, you're going to become noisy. No one's looking for more information. We're overwhelmed, but when we can apply it through a story, it helps them A, remember you, B, helps them apply the story to their own life. Even if they don't have that same story, they have felt that same emotion, whether overwhelmed, embarrassed, happy, sad, whatever it is. So when we do that, it helps, you stick out. And the thing I love about story too is that it instantly brands you, right? Because you're the only one that has these stories. So the things that you tell people will either make them like love you, or they'll be like, oh my gosh, this girl's crazy and I'm out. And every time I have an unsubscribe and it happens, I have to remember, like it's okay because I am who I am. And if they don't like these stories, they're not going to like me. So the more we infuse our personality in, the more you're going to really stand out in this crowded market, especially now when we're all online. So
no, for sure. It's a great way to look at it because you're just like, I know I'm confident in who I am. It's like I'm sharing personal stories. I'm showing my personality. It's like at this point, if somebody does unsubscribe, even though it hurts your soul in the moment, it's like, it's okay. It's like, I know that the people who I want to work with and like communicate with all the time are sticking around. So I get it.
Right. And I'll mention really quickly here, I have something called my soccer mom test. I'm a mom. Okay. My daughter does soccer, so it works out well. But on that same token, yes, we want to tell personal stories, but this isn't like a time I joke around and wish I could talk for an hour about, like, I hate the word authenticity because I think it's bull. Like no one really wants to know our authentic selves, right? We want the real version of you, but we get really authentic. Then all of a sudden, we're oversharing. Like, where is that line? So I always look at it like, is this a story I would tell to the mom when I used to be able to go and hang out with a mom on a soccer field? Like, is this something that I would share, or is this something I'd feel embarrassed or raw about? Or is this something I'm not quite over yet? And it helps me, it helps me because I think this is the question I get a lot of times is like, when is too personal? When is it too personal? And that's kind of a good thing. If it feels a little yucky when you go to write it, then okay, this isn't something. And there's definitely, I share a lot, but there's a lot of things I don't share. But however, no one knows that because they feel like they're getting to know you. Yeah,
no, I get it. That's great advice. Brenna, I want to talk about, because I get this question often, and we actually had somebody in the group kind of reach out to me ahead of time, is they like, I'm starting my email list from scratch, right? So what would you say would be like one of the best emails to write to like as your first email to help build your list? And then also, how would you get subscribers to it to begin with? Like, how would you get a couple people to be on your email list to initially reach out to them?
Well, I would say initially that I mean, there's all different ways to go about it. I think you have to look at where do you want to be online? Like, where are your, are you going to, I choose, especially if you're just starting, are you choosing which platform are you going to be on socially? Is it LinkedIn? Is it, Instagram? Is it Facebook? Really choose one and stick to it. I can tell you, like, from experience, it's hard to do everything at once and it gets diluted. So choose what that is. And then you just have to, I read the other day, it takes people 7 times to even remember something that you say. So you have to go on to your social platforms and ask people all the time. And I have even my current freebie I've had out for 8 months now, but every time I mention it, I always get signups when I'm on Instagram, when I'm talking about it. So I think, first of all, you have to be shouting it out. I think you have to make sure that when you do shout it out, it's a solution to someone's problem. So they have a reason. People are very precious, myself included, handing out their email lists at times. And so, what are you offering them? So I think you have to back up even further is, what is your lead magnet and why would they want to sign up for something like this? What's the solution? So you really have to think about first, because if you don't have an effective lead magnet that has a stellar headline, something that really draws them in, a great landing page, no one's going to be signing up anyway. So I think figuring out what your platforms are, if you have friends, I don't think people take advantage of, as much as they could online with, asking someone, hey, how about you share my freebie today and I'll share yours. So if there's a freebie out there, someone you like, why not ask them? I think those little touches, people, is that 87% of people believe a online review as much as we do a referral from a friend. And so I kind of take that concept of what can we use in our current network to really spread the word. The other thing that I would mention, getting onto podcasts, getting into Facebook groups, really making yourself kind of sticking out, making sure that your freebie is easy to get to. Is it on your website? Is there a pop-up? Pop-ups work 1,500% better or something like that. Then having, a static, make sure that you're not asking people to sign up for your newsletter. No one wants your newsletter, right? We all want answers to, our pain. Or solutions to the problems we're going through. So when I go through and look, that's the first thing I look for on people's websites. Like, don't sign up for my newsletter. I'm trying to think of other ways. There's just so many different ways to get the word out there. I just think you have to figure out what it is, but absolutely having a pop-up on your site, having it easy to click to on social, making sure it's on your website, asking friends to share it for you. And once again, getting on groups and kind of cross-pollinating audiences is a great way. Something I did, which I didn't even realize how smart I was being when I did a little bit, but when I came up with my current idea to do my segue guide, which is my current freebie, I had an idea, and I'll try and make this quick, but I had an idea for a lead magnet where I talked not just about email marketing, but I took it from a different angle that other people were talking about, which is a lot of people don't talk about the segue, the transition. A lot of people talk about the headlines or, your calls to action. And I thought no one talks about how you, in order to get your story effectively over to your call to action, you have to have a really great segue, a really great transition. And so I had an idea to do this, and I thought, why don't I use examples from people to include in my guide? And at that point, I went and reached out to my mentor, Chris Orzakowski, who's very well known. And then at that point, I reached out to Laura Belgray, Marisa Corcoran, Linda Perry, like these top copywriters who all agreed to be part of my guide. And not only did it help me grow my list, pretty quickly, since I mentioned them, that they shared it when I initially put it out. So it was that cross-pollination, but it also kind of set me apart as an expert, right? Because here now all of a sudden I have these guide where I am, next to Chris or Laura or Marisa. So really think about that as well too. Like, who are people in your community that have bigger communities than you? And can you do something like this and go at it from a different angle than what other people are talking about?
Yeah, that collaboration is so helpful. Just like that cross pollination, like you said. I love that. Yeah, a lot of great advice there, Brenna. And it's super interesting that like people are just thinking it's like, well, I have contacts in my list. Should I just email them and be like a question, like how can I help them? which is one way to do it. But I think just having a lead magnet, like you said, create something, take some time to think about a big problem, like what is off your audience, right? And how can you help them solve that? And then just go around and kind of make yourself known and start promoting it across, one or two channels. Like you said, pick one that you feel confident in, that you're going to be hanging out with a lot. I feel like my problem is I like dive around too many platforms all the time, or like I feel like I want to be on all these different channels. But yeah, I think narrowing it down is super important.
Absolutely. And I know you asked about that first initial email, and not only the first initial email, but really making sure you have a really great welcome series too. I'm in the middle of even revising mine, really having a great welcome series that backs up.
Yeah.
People are most interested in you when they sign up for your list. So you at minimum, I would say 3 emails, but 5 to 7 emails that go out immediately. You can stagger them appropriately, but have these emails that go out, because that's how someone's going to remember you. If you only send them a welcome email and say, hey, here's your freebie, and then you don't email them again for a month, the chances that they're going to remember you are not so great. Or how many times do we download a freebie? I'm so guilty of this. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to look at this later, right? But then I totally forget about it. And then it sits in like a graveyard in my email. And then I don't hear from the person for a month. And then when I do, I'm like, who the heck is this person? I have no idea. You don't want to be the person in someone's inbox and someone saying, I have no idea who this person is. So really, right. I don't think the first welcome email has to be anything crazy special besides having a little bit of personality. That one I'd say is more straightforward. Like, hey, you're here. Here's what you're getting. Here's what to expect from me. Sometimes I know, even some people will even say, I know my mentor, Chris, will be like, hey, if you're not interested in this, you can jump off the bandwagon now and unsubscribe, or this is what's going to be coming up here. So I think there's a lot of ways to go about it, but not only just really focusing on that welcome email, realizing the importance of your funnel is having a strong welcome series after the fact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Brenna, we are going to go over one of your emails. I wanted to have you share one. So we'll do that in a little bit, but okay. I want to just switch gears first to the Instagram content because you have co-founded the content bar. So tell me, what's the quick elevator pitch behind the content bar?
The content bar is a monthly membership that helps entrepreneurs, primarily females, create content effectively and easily, where they start getting more engagement, but they're spending less time having to worry about the ins and outs. So really quickly, I'll throw some features at everyone just to give you an idea of what it is. It is, we have caption prompts, templates, email prompts. Starting next month, we're going to have email templates. We provide hashtags, a content calendar, and I partnered with a professional photographer. So, our USP is that not only, to have great content, you have to have both great visuals and great copy, right? And so we kind of take our expertise and come at it and help people inside of our group figure out a way to use their unique voice by customizing some of these pre-done templates and prompts that we have for them, and be able to give advice about copy and getting their visuals in order.
Yeah. Obviously, Instagram is extremely visual, and that just real quick, that sounds like a ton of value within the content bar, especially people who just want to grow their presence on Instagram and just have some help along the way. But I'm curious because what's your best advice of pairing, the right caption with the right image? Because sometimes people are just like, I'm sitting by a beach and I'm smiling, and then the caption is kind of something totally not related in the sense to the picture, but somehow they tie it back into it. It's always interesting to me.
I go kind of a little, I don't think it has to match properly, right? However, especially for if you're using one of our stock images, unless it's like a flat lay, I always recommend there's some element that you can tie in. So for example, earlier this week, I talked about how I have a hard time relaxing. Like I don't have time to relax. And my image that I used from our membership was like a beach chair, something relaxing. So I kind of gave that relaxing vibe. People go about it different. Now my partner, she always chooses her image first and then does her caption. Of course, I'm a copy person. So, right, I'm thinking about what am I putting out there? And then what kind of image can I have that makes sense? I think if you're using a picture of yourself on Instagram, I don't think it has to match. I think if I'm really looking to get higher engagement, using pictures of ourselves are always important. I love throwing in graphics because graphics get great saves and shares. So, the way I recommend people take a look at this is having a healthy mix of pictures of yourself. You want to have yourself at least in every 9 pictures, if not more often. Because people, especially on Instagram, we're building that know, like, trust. People want to see your face. So actually having pictures of your face is super important.
Yeah. So when they go to their feed, they at least see like 1 or 2 pictures of you. At least they know who they're looking at, more or less, right?
Absolutely. And and when I say this too, Instagram, I don't think these have to be perfect professional pictures that you've taken. I only had 1 professional photo shoot, and it's when I went to meet my business partner because she's a photographer, right? I have my kids take pictures. My girls are my photographer. So any picture on my Instagram feed, which is not me just sitting there smiling, is my girls making me do something crazy. So have your teenagers take pictures of you.
Are they the most critical fans, or are they just like, oh, mom, this is really good? Or is it just like,
they're more like mom?
Are they like taking 20 pictures?
Yeah, like right. So I think it's funny too, because I didn't do social media before I started my business. So I think it's funny to them that I'm even doing, like, and my close friends are like, who are you? Like, you have your picture up like all over the place. So, but you have to do it. I was like, not for video, having pictures of myself. And I realized very quickly, if you want to push yourself along in this world, it's kind of a must. And also having graphics is a really smart way on Instagram. So then you don't have to worry about having as many pictures of you, but graphics get great save share. So little tips that you have, especially graphics that you're not taking someone else's quote, but using your own unique ideas, like funny things that pop into your head. Like, I'm telling you, the silliest things I think of all of a sudden get super great shares. And then there's times where I have business tips that also. So thinking about, if you have a concept or an idea, is there a way that you can create a graphic on Instagram that you can, put on so that it gets shared? And it's a great way, once again, of making yourself the expert. And then, of course, because of the content bar, when you're tired of doing all of that and just need a picture, I don't have... People sometimes will think that stock photos don't get great engagement. And I think it's kind of an excuse. Like, I think if you are known for yourself, you have great copy, you have a great headline, people are interested. Some of my highest ranking posts have been images that are stock photos, but you don't want to do it all the time because then it gets boring and it's not personal. So figuring out a healthy mix.
Yeah. I love the tip about just graphics and how they get a lot of shares and saves, because I think that's a great metric too to use. Like, I started noticing this when I've done like some graphics, just some copywriting tips. I go back and look at the insights and it's like 9 people saved it. I was like, oh, wow. And it's just like, compared to like a picture of yourself, maybe it's like you don't get any, but yeah, the graphics I think are super helpful. So that's great advice for people, because I think a lot of times it's just like, how can I post this picture of me, or I'm sitting by my fireplace with my laptop and like all these different things, but graphics can play a big role in growing your brand on there.
Right. And my graphics aren't, I have a couple of fancy ones that my friend Reese helped me with, but I just go into Word Swag and type something up. So it doesn't have to be, I think it's more important what your words are. However, pictures and imagery will catch people's attention as well, but don't overthink it is what I want. People might hear us saying graphics and like, wait, I'm a copywriter. I don't know how to create a graphic. So it doesn't have to.
Yeah, go on Canva. I did one where it just blank. I picked a cool font and I just said how to blank, like a copywriting tip, and then like go through the slides, and it's just copy and maybe like a picture, like a green check mark, and like I did one with like just a cup of coffee, like a little icon. But it was like one of my highest engaged posts on Instagram recently. So
can I give you
super crazy.
Can I give you a little ninja tip on those as well? Where I get
absolutely.
I will, and I'm sure I know you can do this on Canva, but once again, graphics aren't my thing. What I do is when you have a graphic, if it makes sense to add a GIF. So what I do is I upload it to my stories. I find a GIF. So maybe it's an arrow or a check mark or something, or something that brings attention to it. I save it to my phone as a video. and then I upload it to my Instagram feed as a video, because what that does, it makes it not a static image too. It's something that will catch someone's attention, because and I've had a lot of luck doing little things like that just to kind of make people, stop, because they're seeing this check mark, and it gets more views 100% of the time. It gets more views no matter what.
Yeah, no, I love that. Last question on Instagram. How do you determine the best balance between selling and just lifestyle post?
Great question. I'm going to go against the grain here and say that I don't think that on your Instagram feed, you should be selling very often.
Okay.
I think it's extremely tiring. Like every day, like I see this with coaches constantly, like, okay, you want to join my one-on-one program,
Yeah.
do something. I do think there's appropriate times for launching. So I think if you're really specific, but if you're a coach, if you're someone who's selling a service all the time, Instagram is a social platform. It wasn't made to be sold on. So I do something called my soft sell. A great example of this, if you want to go look at my Instagram post from today, this is where I do a soft sell, which is the way that I kind of set up the caption or the framework would be, you of course have your great headline. And then depending if you have a story or not a story, but I talk about what I'm selling, but that's not my main call to action. So for example, today is my Christmas light picture. I just said, actually, coincidentally, today the doors closed for the content bar and our prices are going up by 30%. This is what I said in my post today. And because I'm in a hard sell period, I'm selling a little bit more on my Instagram because I want people to know about it. You obviously have to tell people, but if my call to action is, do you want to sign up for the content bar? I'm going to get zero engagement. The algorithm isn't going to be friendly to me. So at that point, I kind of go back again and take a look at my overall Instagram post and say, what's a call to action? I'll give you my call to action framework here for Instagram, and it's super important, is you want to make sure that your questions are easy to answer. So for example, a lot of times I'll see something like, how are you feeling today? Or something really vague, right? Or something overly personal. So I always think, is my question easy to answer? Yeah. Is it something that someone's going to have to think about? If you make people think on Instagram, they're out, like they're not hanging around. So a lot of times too, even giving them, hey, yes or no, A, B, C, or D, like giving them where all they have to answer is something really quick. And people will be like, oh no, they're only going to leave a one-word answer. But what happens is when people, more often than not, people will leave me longer answers when I ask for shorter answers because their brain has a place to go. And the other thing that really happens at the time is I can get back and have follow-up questions. Oh, you said no about this. Why is that? The third thing is making sure it's something the reader wants to answer. Really thinking about, the person who's reading your post. Is this something that is it something that's going to be interesting to them? Are we really thinking about them? And that's the case in all of our calls to action. But I will say, so on the post that I did today, I had a great headline. I had my soft sell. And then I went back to my engagement part was, when do you put your Christmas lights up? Like I'm putting mine up September 1st this year. When do you put yours up? And so, but I'm getting all kinds of answers. Oh my gosh, I love twinkly lights too. I don't put them up till December, right? And then we're having this discussion about Christmas lights. So I got my point across, but I'm still engaging with these people. And maybe they won't buy from me today, but the more that I'm out there, the more that I'm engaging with my audience. None of us want to be sold to. We want, we buy from people that we know, like, and trust. So really keeping that in mind. I will say really quickly is, however, I love stories for selling and I love emails for selling. So,
I think stories are the right way, because if people are engaging with you on your feed, then the algorithm, I feel like, is going to have your story show up earlier. And then they can see, oh yeah, Brenna did mention about the segue freebie. Or the content bars. Like, let me look into this.
Exactly. So I love stories for selling. So if I would put I would really go light on my sales if you are going to sell, and when I say selling too, when you're talking about getting people on your freebie, like social proof sells, like all of those are things that I kind of do soft mentions of, but my main calls to action are always, what kind of fun, engaging post, or what can I ask them about their business that they're going to want to answer?
Yeah. Awesome. Love that. Great advice there, Brenna. All right, let's go ahead now and go over the email that you wanted to share with me. Let's pick one email, because I did ask, what's one email that you got a lot of reactions from? Just kind of break it down from some of the things you talked about before.
Let's hopefully I share this the way I'm going to talk. I had a couple, but let's see. Can you see my screen? Oh, wait, no, you can't yet.
No, not yet. Yeah, here we go.
I'm going to do this. This one's a little off the wall. And
yeah.
And I thought it'd be a good one. So on this email, my subject line is, please pee on me if this happens again. So I don't know if you want me to read this or just tell you what my thoughts
was this part of no, it's just kind of like break it down. This wasn't part of a welcome sequence, right?
No. This wasn't part of my welcome series.
No.
This was actually a part of a sales email that I did for the content bar that I sent out at the beginning of the year. And no one's opening our emails if we're not getting them to open because of the subject line. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a subject line that people are going to want to open, right? Because
totally,
yeah, you're talking about peeing on someone. So what I did here, I was talking about, and this was kind of like my forward, backward, what I talked about earlier. So in this email, I'm talking about when I got married in the 90s, how my husband and I went to Puerto Vallarta. And I really wanted to kind of set up the scene. So really being specific with your stories as copywriters, making sure that you're not just saying, I was on a boat in Puerto Vallarta, like, where were you? Yeah. How were they feeling? So here I'm kind of setting the scene up in my story. I was a 20-year-old newlywed, and I had this like idea that that's what adults did. They went snorkeling while they were on their honeymoon. Yeah. And then I kind of talked about how, if I look down to the third paragraph, I really got into the story here, like how I tried to be calm and relaxed. But this trip, like, I wasn't. Like, all of a sudden it hit me that I was 20, like in a foreign country with someone I knew for a year, and that I just promised my life to them. And I would I was not relaxed. However, I made myself get into, the ocean in Mexico. I don't even know what ocean it is. And how at that point I got stung by a jellyfish. And how bad it hurt. So from there, I kind of go into, and this is where the pee on me if this happens. If you're a friend, and so here I'm throwing in a little pop culture, my pop culture, because like I don't have a lot of time to watch TV. Like, I'm not up to date, but I'm like Friends, old school Seinfeld. So I talk about that Friends episode. So if you're someone who like knows Friends, even if you're reading the top, you probably know that's where I'm going. But there's this Friends episode where Monica gets stung by a jellyfish. And so she lets Chandler pee on her leg. And that's what I was saying, is I was in so much pain, I would have let you pee on my leg after I got stung by this jellyfish. And so it's here. Now I go into, so first of all, this has gotten a lot of engagement. And not only that, like when I get invited on podcasts, I swear this is the email people talk about, because it is so kind of off the wall, right? Like I'm really telling, and this is just a simple story about how, when I do these stories too, I kind of go into my most dramatic self. So, really thinking about like, how can you really play this up? Like if you were acting it out. And then I looked at my segue. And this is something that is super important here. Here is the transition from.
I'm curious how you did this. Yeah.
And my simple segue here is maybe creating content for your business feels like this. Not knowing what to write every day feels like a constant sting, or creating more content is scarier than a jellyfish swimming towards you in the ocean. Or maybe having to research hashtags is worse than the thought of having someone pee on you. So this is probably a more sophisticated segue here, where I'm really going into all of these emotions but what I'm trying to get across here, obviously, is how painful creating content and writing emails all the time is. And so pain would have been like my big emotion here. But if you're watching this and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so complicated. This doesn't have to be. Like in my segue guide that I have as my freebie, I give you 10 simple segues, which is anything from, why am I telling you this story? Why is this important to you? There's ways to easily transition over to your main point and your new point of view. It doesn't have to be as complicated as this segue.
Yeah.
And then this is where I just go into basically, that's why we created the content bar. And I won't go into this, but here is what the section of the email that I would call my unique point of view. I have a breakdown of how I write emails. And this is simply, here's like the filler information. Okay, I want them to know about the content bar. And then I go into my call to action. And then of course I have PSs that kind of talk about going in and, never forget the PS on an email. It's the most read part of most emails. But and that was it. So basically when you're setting these type of emails up, and you can do this for your captions as well, you want to make sure you have a super great headline that goes into your story, that transitions over into your transition sentence or your segue. Then you go into your unique point of view, which is why, what part of, what are you talking about your business that kind of backs up the part of your story, and then a call to action.
Yeah. I'm curious, Brenna, too, when you wrote this, were you finding ways to break it down and make it easier to read with short sentences? Because if you go back up, you're telling your story, but you're breaking it down. And one question I get is like, what works better? Like, I mean, it seems simple answer, like don't write blocks of paragraphs, but you seem to be pretty strategic of like one sentences each and then break.
Yes. So I think it's, having some cadence to it. So absolutely. I think that when people ask me what my number one tip is, it is to break up your text. How many different ways? This goes for Instagram as well, like especially on Instagram. Like most people are skimming, and they're skimming from top to bottom, right? So keep in mind that you're looking for ways to break up your text by having really short sentences. And even some of these are probably a little long. I have a lot of short ones. Even if I go back and look, I might have broken this up even further. Sometimes a paragraph, though, if you break it up too much, you lose some of the effectiveness. So I always go back and look. So I'm looking for, how can I break this up? Where can I add bold that would, if people are just skimming down, they'd almost understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Or if they just look down at their phone and they see something like, if they see that line and it's in bold, yes, I would have let you pee on my leg. They're probably going to be like,
yeah, for sure. It's like, what are we talking about here?
Exactly.
And it's just like, you kind of like thrown them so off where it's just like, maybe creating content, stings for you. It's like, oh, I see what they're doing. And then you go right into, other pain points and then talk about all the benefits. It's nice. It's a good segue. And we had a question here, Brenna. Andy, who's watching on YouTube, who's part of the group. Where can we get your segue ideas? So segue ideas.
If it's okay with you, after this is over, I'll go live and I'll put the link to my freebie, which is the one that has Laura Bell Gray and all the other ones that breaks down how to do this. And then it also has the 10 simple segues at the end. So
I love it. Yeah, we'll put that in the group afterwards. That would be awesome.
Great.
But awesome.
And looking for too, like I have bullet points in here. You're right. Different things to move your person along. So the more that you can kind of making sure that the important parts are bolded and that it's super, super easy to read. Absolutely.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. We'll go ahead and take that off. That was great. I love that email. Well, you showed me it briefly before we went on. I'm like, yeah, we'll use that one. It's like next time, why you should pee on me. I love it. Brenna, let's go final couple questions as we wrap up. And then everybody watching, we are going to do whose tagline is it anyway after this, which
I want to have a preface here. Like, I'm way better at emails than I am taglines. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh man, I'm much better at other things too. It's so much fun. No, so I'm excited for that. But Brenna, I always ask these last two questions. So tell me, what are some of your go-to tools that you use every day to run your business?
Gosh, I don't use a lot of tools. Like I was thinking, you told me we were going to have this question. I'm like, what do I use every day? Besides my laptop.
Yeah.
WorkKit.
Like other apps, you could say like other like different apps that help you kind of do everything.
I would say WordSwag I use for when I'm trying to do a quick. I got it back in the day where I had to pay for it once. But it's something when I want to create a quick graphic, it's super easy, way easier than Canva to use on your phone. So that's what I love. There's one that I use for Instagram every day. It's called Spacey.
Okay.
And it breaks up how we talked about having those really clean line breaks. If you try and do this in Instagram, it's almost impossible. So what you can do.
Yes, it sucks.
So if there's an app, it's $2.99. You can actually do it for free online, but for $2.99, it's worth every penny. And you take what you're going to put onto Instagram, you paste it into this app. It gives it, then you paste it back into Instagram, and it breaks up your lines perfectly every time. So that is absolutely something that I use every day. So besides, like I said, I love ConvertKit for email. So I use ConvertKit constantly, and my Google Docs, right? Like that's how I'm doing all my client work is I'm hanging out in Google Docs all the time.
No, awesome. Well, definitely two apps that I feel like a lot of people will look into. And the Spacey one sounds super convenient because it is, when you're writing in the Instagram app itself, having those line breaks gets tough. It's like you post and then you got to go back and edit it. And sometimes you can't fix it because it's like, you wanted it to break it down and then it looks like one big clunky paragraph.
And people say too, if you go in and edit an Instagram post, that it actually diminishes your engagement. I haven't tested it out. I have a good friend who swears that if you edit a post, it kills your engagement. So even more of a reason to use that Spacey app to like get your clean line breaks. Yeah, no, awesome. And then last 2-part question, Brenna, are you more burrito or pizza? The healthier meat or the I'm from New Jersey, so if we're talking New Jersey pizza, I'm a pizza gal, right? But I live in California, so I'm more of a burrito girl in California. So. Okay, all right, so we'll stick with burrito then. So if you had to create your success burrito, what are the 3 key ingredients for that? So what characteristics? You're making me think creatively. Yeah, please. I would say my 3 would be facing your fears and doing things anyway. Love it. Yeah. My second one would be not comparing yourself to others. And third one would be done is better than perfect. Getting out there more and more, even with imperfect stuff. So. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, done is better than perfect. We can always have, I feel like a lot of times in our head, we're all perfectionists. So it's just like, I wanted to get this right. But I think the key is, especially growing your brand on social media, is really just seeing what sticks as you go along. And this is something that Laura Bell Gray is like drilled into my head with, listening to her is people, you're not gonna know what people respond to until you put more stuff out there. Right. And like I said, with me, my people respond great to my like simple business tips. Like I want to overthink and make things super complicated and give people everything, right? We're just given that simple apple tip. It always goes great. And then when I talk about dumb stuff, like I talked about how I brush my teeth in the shower, I joked around, like I started a controversy over this. Like people were like freaking out. And then the other half of the people were like, yeah, that's a great idea. So just really personality. And I might have a 4th ingredient, which would be leaning into your quirky things in your personality, because it really does make a huge difference on people getting to know you. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for that great answer for your success burrito. Awesome characteristics. I think 3 that, we've really never had before. Obviously you worded them a little different, but sometimes people give like the consistency and things like that. But, Wait, can I have a 5th? I have a 5th one that I think so. 5th one. This is a hefty burrito. This is the Baja burrito I keep hearing about with the French fries. And this is something we talk to, is that I would say, thinking back, one of the ways my business has grown so well is like simply being friendly and shouting other people out and really being there as a community member. And it's truly, it does so much for your business when you take a few moments every day, no matter which social platform you are, and really be outward focused and think, what can I do for someone else? What can I shout someone else? Because it truly comes back to you. And I have an Instagram post on that too. You can go check it out. But yes, it does make a huge difference. Yeah. And I mean, it can definitely motivate and validate other people too. Right? Of just like to keep going. If they maybe feel like nobody's really listening to their content, but you catch it and you reach out. I mean, you do a great job, of helping out and answering questions in the Copy Co-op group. So, you're proof of that. So like it, dig it. Awesome, Brenna. Well, that wraps up the Proceed with Passion Q&A. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun and a lot of great insight. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I loved it. Yeah. And so now just quickly tell everybody where they can find you across the internet. I know you talked about it a little bit here, but let people know your handles, your website. Perfect. The content bar is just thecontentbar.co. We also have an Instagram page on that. On Instagram, I'm Brenna McGowan Co., which is how you can find me. I'm in the middle of rebranding and I've just not gotten to it. So my website is still, it's going to become BrennaMcGowan.co, but it's my original business name, which is socialrescue.com. So thesocialrescue.com. So if you're looking for me on my website, but the best place if you want to chat with me is obviously Instagram. So
obviously Instagram. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Brenna. Yes, everybody, please give her a follow on Instagram. You can hear more of these fun stories and get on her email list too, because you'll get even more stories from her. It's some really good stuff. But thank you again, Brenna. Thank you everybody for watching today on YouTube and in the Copy Co-op group. I am Terry Schilling. This was another edition of Proceed with Passion, and we will see you on the next episode. Cheers.
Thank you.